Hello. What we're looking at here is a character that's been created using Photoshop, shapes, and layers. If you cast your eyes in the right-hand corner over here, you can see some things such as labeled left ear, which is got a visibility icon, the little eyeball here. If I were to click on that, I could turn off or on that particular layer. Each of the layers can be turned off and on by using the toggle on the visibility here. In addition, if you decided you wanted to hide all the other layers, you could do so and focus on one particular layer. Useful feature for breaking up your artwork into multiple layers. In addition to that, we're going to be dealing with shapes. Now, you've probably started out with a sketch, and you may have done that in some type of digital format, or it might be that you had me scan your artwork, and I've got that available for you in some format or another. And so the easiest way, I think, to grab yours from the PDF would simply be to use the snipping tool, which we've done a few times in class. And if I were to grab one of the characters from a scan and bring them in, I could then set this up within Photoshop. So Photoshop lets me, for example, start out with a new document, and it can actually say use the clipboard as the size. Control V for paste. And now to rotate it, there's a number of ways to do it. I'm just going to demonstrate with a Control T for a transform. I can slip over here, grab and rotate the image. Does not change the underlying size because the artwork I've added is different from the image. So rather than do a commit, I'm going to cancel on that, and I'm going to show you that instead I'm going to click on Image, and then I can actually rotate my image 90 degrees in the same direction as a clock, and that's a better way to line this up. Layers, as I mentioned, can be hidden. They can also be added. There's a little turned page style icon in the corner here, and the pop-up says Create a New Layer. Well, when we go to deal with a shape, we want to be on a new layer before we do it. And the existing shapes that are available include things like a rounded rectangle or an ellipse. And if you had a straight circle shape, you could click to create a particular object. And as you drag out, you'll notice that it is actually creating a circle shape. I can use the space bar as a shortcut for the Move tool, or I could click on the Move icon over here, and I can grab and relocate my particular object. Now, if it turns out that you want to edit the path here and change it a little bit, you can do so. You'll notice that this is a shape. It's got a slightly different format from a rasterized or pixel-based layer. Rather than work with this particular default shape, which is one option, I'm going to delete this shape, and I'm going to demonstrate a method where you actually can get in and look at some of the custom shapes. Custom shapes by default will not include all of the shapes you're about to see here, but you can add to them through this gear icon. You can actually add different shapes. I've got them all added from the default, but if I decided that, for example, I wanted to look at a light bulb shape, I could actually go and find that on the hard drive and bring that in. And if I wanted to look at all of the shapes, I could look at all of the shapes. And it's very possible that you could find shapes that might be usable to help draw your character. Sometimes with a little bit of rotation, you can end up with a shape that works very well. For example, what's initially named a sign icon might be quite useful as a torso. So using the custom shape, now I'm going to just click to create and drag up, and you might notice that this shape almost matches the curve that I want for the legs. Control T, which I mentioned before, can allow me to transform this. I can scale and try to line up the torso with the character. If I like this, I can continue to use it. Just remember, as you add new layers, you want to make sure that you are committing any changes you may have active and create a new layer. Now, as I go to create a second layer, it might be a good idea to name this torso, so I have an idea what I'm dealing with. Another method would be to simply draw out the shape of or shape for parts of your characters, and you'll notice that this particular drawing is not done with symmetry in mind. We could draw an imaginary line down the middle of it and deal with either the left or right side, and then mirror or rotate or flip a layer to use it for the other side of the body. If I use the pen tool, I can actually draw a series of points that will be tracked mathematically as a shape. And if I decided I was creating a leg and wanted that leg to have whatever attribute it is, I can then right click and say define custom shape from that point. From there, if I called this a leg or a body with a leg, I could do so. I'm going to cancel on this because I failed to move to a new layer when I created that. The backup command Control-Z will only go back one layer, so Alt-Control-Z will let me come back additional levels of undo. And now I'm going to remind myself to move to a new layer where I'm going to create the leg, go back into the pen tool, and I'm going to also hold down the Control key and zoom in a little bit. Alt-Control to zoom in, so that I can actually get in and put in some fine details for how my leg might want to align with the other part of the body. I'm now using, basically as a reference image, the background to figure out how I might want to have the thigh or upper leg for this character lay in place. As I close the shape, I can right-click and say, define a custom shape. Give it a name such as let's see. That would be the character's left thigh. And as I've created the left thigh, I can then have that as a layer. Notice that this particular shape is not filled. We can change the style of the swatch and make sure that it actually is filled as well. Now the interesting thing is when I go back into my custom shape tool, one of the new things I can select here would be that left thigh.